You know, when we have kids that cut up and carry on, sometimes we have to get stern with them and say, behave. Well, tonight, the title of our message tonight is called Behave Christ-like. Behave Christ-like. So, if you would turn over to the book of Romans, chapter 12, verses 9 through 11. And I'm going to read it in one version, then I'm going to read it in another version, one we're going to break it down in. So, everybody's over there. Let's look at that. Being it's Valentine's Day, the second word. Look at there. Let love be without hypocrisy. Arbor what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love. In honor, giving preference to one another, not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. The word of God for the people of God. One thing that you can say about the Apostle Paul, or one thing that you cannot say about the Apostle Paul, was he was not a fence straddler. He was not one to straddle the fence. Now, did the Apostle Paul have to deal with sin? Yes. Did Jesus have to deal with sin? Yes. It was at him every day, being thrown at him. Satan took him up and tempted him in more ways than we can imagine to get him to sin. The Apostle Paul had to deal with sin. He even talked about it in some of his later books. He talked about how for that Christ-like perfection that I've not yet attained, yet I press on. So that meant he wasn't there yet. But he was still striving. He was still digging. He was still working hard every day. Mother Teresa, most of us think of Mother Teresa as about as close to a heavenly person that one of the strongest Christian ladies in the world. She was still growing the day she died. So we must continually grow in our walk, our everyday walk. And some things that Paul brought out here in the book to the Romans in verse 11. And we look at the very first one. It says, love be pure, or let love be without hypocrisy. We'll look at it from here. We got 6 different points we're going to look at. We're going to do this in 2 different nights. Brother Scott, I might have next month. Next Tuesday, second Sunday. Where'd I get Tuesday at? Blah, blah. To finish this up, I just don't think we're going to have enough time to get through everything tonight. But the first one, it says, love, your love must be completely sincere. It's got to be pure, no hypocrisy, no playing, and no ulterior motive. The love that God is talking about, that Paul is talking about here, is pure agape love. It's not a cupboard love. A cupboard love is when you got one eye on for being affectionate and one eye on what you can gain from it. That's not the kind of love he's talking. That's not the kind of love he's talking about. He's not talking about selfish love. Selfish love is looking for what he can get out of it, or what one can get out of it. He's talking about Christian love. Christian love is pure outgoing of the heart to others without expecting anything in return. And that's what he's talking about here. We must have that pure, affectionate love for one another as Christians. The second point, hate that which is evil and cling to that which is good. Hate evil and cling to good. It is said that our number one security against sin lies in being shocked by it. Now, let's take a look at that for just a minute. Remember back, some of our kids in here probably don't even remember this. I don't even know if my kids remember this. When was the first school shooting? When was that? In the 90s? 98. 97, 98? So, how troubling was that? who's up to it. That's like working with a guy. Sammy, you just like me. You probably had this happen to you. Work with a guy, cusses like a sailor, and you just don't like it. You kind of stay away from it. But you know, you got to work with him, and you kind of just, well, I just let it go. Next thing you know, you keep hanging around with him. Next thing you know, you don't let one slip. Because you've muddled in the mud. You've played in it that long. And it's done got a next to you. So, you know that old saying, birds of a feather flock together. That very well can happen. Very well can happen. We can get caught up in it. And the next thing you know, we get immune to it. What about the gazelle? Anybody ever seen this on one of those wildlife documentaries where you have this group of gazelles, they go down to the water, and they know good and well that there's something in the water, that an infestation of alligators is going to reach up and grab them. But what do they do every time they get thirsty? They go to the water. They go to the water. They go to the water. It's not going to happen to me. It's not going to get me this time. And then all of a sudden, you see that documentary where one of them alligators comes out and grabs him one, and he takes him back. What does the other ones do? They back up real quick, and then they go back to drinking water. Because they become immune to it. They understand. It's become nothing. Hey, if an alligator's out there in this pet pond, we ain't fishing in that pond. We're going to give it up. It's just going to have to go. We're not going to fish out there. And that's the way we have to be. We have to see sin for what it is and stay away from it. Stay away from it for fear of getting caught like the gazelle too close to the water and getting devoured. Because that's how Satan works. He wants you to get real comfortable. Get on down to the water. It's going to be all right. And then I got you. Just like an alligator. He's got you. That's how he works. And that's what the Apostle Paul, he understood this. And that's what he's trying to say to the people in Rome is to understand. Hate evil. Cling to what is good. Stay away from it. Not to fear the consequences of sin, but to love, honor passionately in the way to real goodness. Number 3. Be affectionate to one another in brotherly love. Be affectionate to one another in brotherly love. The word he's talking about in brotherly love is a Greek word called this is going to be a hard one to pronounce. Philostorgos is the Greek word for family love. Now we talked about this afternoon, just a little bit in our, what was that meeting we had? I went brain dead. Core values. We talked about this a little bit in our core values, and I thought that we was fixing to start getting into my message a little bit. Family love. We have to understand, we here at Kalem United Methodist Church, we are a family. We are a family. We are a family of different races. We're a family of different backgrounds, male, female, kids, middle-aged, older, younger, everywhere in between. This is our family. This is who we are. This is who we are. We are, and I love the way that's always said, like we are Marshall. We are Kalem, United Methodist Church. And you are the ones that make it what it is. Not just a preacher. He can't carry the throne by himself. The Sunday school teachers can't do it. The youth director can't do it. It's got to be a group. It's got to be us. We are Kalem. And as a church family, which is what Paul's talking about here, a family together, there's nothing that we cannot do. There's nothing that we cannot accomplish as a church. Without Rufus, we don't have a bus driver. Miss Brenda, we don't have somebody teaching that small class. Everybody has got a job. Everybody has got a duty. And that's what makes up our family. That's what makes us up who we are. All right. Talked about the family. D. Give to each other priority and honor. Give to each other priority and honor. Give each other priority. Christians must move self aside and look to our duties. Our rewards are not of this world. If we do what we do as Christians, looking for flattery, looking for a pat on the back, looking for a standing ovation for what you've done, then your reward is right here. Your reward is right here in this world. And that's not what we're about. There was this older gentleman. He was on some kind of big cabinet committee with the early Catholic Church, and he was so well thought of. He showed up for a big banquet, and when he walked in, the crowd saw him, and they began to clap. Well, he didn't know what was going on, so there was another guy walking by, and we stepped back and pushed this guy forward and started clapping for him because he thought it was for this guy. He had no idea that they were clapping for him. Kind of like Quincy last night. Quincy had no idea that he was singing happy birthday to himself. But this guy had no idea because he was so humble. There's that word we was using today. We was talking about being humble. Because our rewards are not of this world. What we do in here is to build up our treasures in heaven. And it is all to glorify God. The Apostle Paul talked about how he was a slave. He was a prisoner to God because he was sold out. He was sold out to God. He was his. To do with whatever he wanted to do with him. That's where, and I'm getting ahead of myself. I got to back up. I almost jumped ahead of myself. So, our rewards are not of this world. So, give to each other priority and honor. The next one is, and I'm sorry, I maybe not be going back and reading some of these, so y'all may be going, what are you reading? I'm reading from two different versions. Verse 11 says, not lagging in diligence. Not lagging in diligence. Don't be sluggish in zeal. Do not be sluggish in zeal. Intensity in the Christian's life, there's no room for the lethargy. Boy, that's a big word. Do not be easygoing. The world is always a battleground. And here's something else. It's the second time I've seen this come back up with Paul. Good, evil. You ever notice that he don't put a middle ground in there? Have you ever noticed that he doesn't put lukewarm? He never puts, just warm enough to eat. It's always good, evil, hot, cold. It's always tit for tat. It's not a middle ground. There's no middle ground. Because does God have middle ground? No. God doesn't have middle ground. It says that we're in preparation for eternity. guys have before. It says, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. Another word, keep your spirit at a boiling point. Keep your spirit at a boiling point. The one whom Christ does not stand, could not stand, the one that Christ could not stand, was the one that was neither hot or cold. What did he say? What did he say in Revelation? I would rather you be hot or cold. I spew you out of my mouth. I'd rather you be hot or cold. The Apostle Paul was never on middle ground. Correct? He was about as cold as you could get because he persecuted Christians. He was even there when Stephen was stoned to death. That's about as cold as you can get. And then Jesus put him on his knees on the road to Damascus, and then he becomes about as hot as you can get. Because he turned 180 degrees that day, and he walked in a different direction. He never looked back. He never tried to re-grab his old wardrobe.
the stoplight, he can't be bothered by the heart cry written on the cardboard in her hands. Oh, but when she looks him in the eye, his heart is broken open wide.